All right, picture this. It was the late 90s, and we were both fresh-faced college kids studying our tails off at Harvard. Me, Ella, female, 41, and him, Rashid, male, 47. We were the dynamic duo, acting our classes, sharing pizza at 2 a.m., and, well, falling in love. You know how it goes in those college days, right? Late night study sessions turn into those cliche love stories. Yeah, we were head over heels. And trust me when I say he was perfect, like in every possible way. He treated me like a princess and was always telling me how much he loved me. But here's the kicker. While I was all in, ready to tie the knot and start our happily ever after, Rashid was dragging his feet. And it wasn't just a case of cold feet. It was like he had planted himself in cement shoes. Every time I brought up the topic of meeting his parents or, God forbid, getting hitched, he'd get this weird, distant look in his eyes. It was as if he was trying to avoid the topic altogether. So, being the fiery gal I am, I finally couldn't take it anymore. We had this epic argument, and I accused him of lying to me, of hiding something big. Let me tell you, folks, that was the moment things went from 0 to 100 real quick. Ella and Rashid are sitting in their cozy living room, sipping on cups of tea. Ella looks at Rashid with a mixture of curiosity and frustration. Hey, Rashid, can we talk about something? Yeah, sure, Ella. What's on your mind? It's just that, well, we've been together for years now, and I can't help but wonder why you've been acting so weird about getting married and why I haven't met your parents yet. Rashid shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Ella, it's not that I don't want to get married or that I don't want you to meet my parents. It's just what, Rashid? You've been avoiding this topic for ages. It feels like you're hiding something. After some dodging, he finally said, Okay, fine. I've been keeping something from you, and I didn't know how to tell you. The reason I haven't introduced you to my parents and haven't proposed is because they don't know I'm marrying an American woman. What the frick? What does that even mean? What? Are you serious, Rashid? How long were you planning on keeping that from me? I know, Ella, it's not fair to you, but my parents have these traditional expectations. They want me to marry someone from our culture. They don't know I'm in love with a black girl. Wow, 3 years? And your parents don't know me? I was 25 at the time. I know, it's awful, I'm sorry. They want me to marry someone of Arab descent. They're strict about it and pretty racist, and I didn't know how to break it to them. So, you've been hiding me? Is that it? Hiding our relationship because you're afraid of what they'll think? You're supposed to love me, even in the face of your racist a-hole parents. I didn't want to hurt you, Ella. I love you so much, and I didn't want to put you in this position. Rashid, I don't know how I feel about this. I love you too, but this changes everything. Marrying into a family with such strict values? I'm not sure I can handle that. Ella, please don't leave me over this. I'll talk to my parents. I'll do whatever it takes to make this work. I can't imagine my life without you. Rashid, I need some time to think. I need to figure out if I'm willing to navigate these cultural differences, and if I can trust you after you kept this from me for so long. I understand, Ella. I should have been honest with you from the start. I'll give you the space you need, but please know that I'm willing to fight for us. I was torn, y'all. On one hand, I loved Rashid with all my heart, and I thought he felt the same. But on the other hand, I couldn't help but wonder if I was ready to jump into a family with such strict values and expectations. Plus the fact that he had kept me hidden like some sort of secret agent had me feeling uneasy, even if I could understand why he did it. I mean, relationships are all about honesty and trust, right? And it seemed like we were starting ours on shaky ground. I needed some time to think things over, to figure out if I could handle being part of a family that might never fully accept me. So after that heart-wrenching conversation, I decided I needed some space to clear my head. Let me tell you, those weeks apart from Rashid were the toughest of my life. I was down in the dumps, more depressed than I'd ever been. But in my heart, I knew Rashid was my person, my perfect match, and I couldn't imagine my life without him. And so, like a fool in love, I went back to him, telling him that I'd do anything with him or for him for the rest of my life. Ick. After we got back together, we did our best to come up with a solution, but everything was sounding kind of scary. After much soul-searching, Rashid and I decided to take a rather unconventional route. We'd get hitched secretly without his parents knowing. This was Rashid's way of proving that he really loved me. Because Rashid was still scared of his parents, he said he would vaguely tell them he'd found a nice girl from a good Lebanese family, conveniently leaving out the part that I was black and that we were already a married couple. The plan? To surprise his parents by bringing me to Lebanon when the time was right, and convince them that we had spent enough time together and that it was true love. We were hoping for something from a fairy tale, I know. Our scheme was to savor the blissful married life for at least a year before properly revealing everything. The grand finale was to fly to Lebanon and drop the bombshell on his parents. If they couldn't accept us, Rashid would reveal that we were already married and insinuating that it was all too late and that he loved me enough to risk disgracing himself. It all sounded like a brilliant plan at the time. Now, you might be wondering how I agreed to this. Well, let's just say Rashid was quite the persuasive guy when he has his mind to it. And maybe, just maybe, I was so head over heels in love that I let my better judgment slip away. Oh, time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it? That year of enjoying our lives as a married couple went by in a flash. Everything felt perfect, and Rashid made sure I knew how much he loved me. He reassured me time and time again that he would always choose me in the end. But as that first year ended and we got into our second, I couldn't help but wonder when we'd make the trip to Lebanon. He wasn't making plans like he said he would. I'd brought it up a few times, and each time Rashid seemed to put it off. He'd get all nervous and wary, saying he needed more time, that the longer we waited, the better. He believed that being married for a longer period would prove to his parents just how committed we were. And to be honest, we were really enjoying our time together, and we were procrastinating that impending wrath that we'd get. Our love was stronger than ever, and the thought of facing his parents' reaction was daunting. So against my better judgment, I agreed to wait one more year, but no more than that. I couldn't deny that a part of me wanted to believe that Rashid was right, that more time would make things easier. So that's what happened. We continued our lives as a happily married couple, cherishing every moment together while I counted down the days until our journey to Lebanon. During that time, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I was determined to make a good impression on my strict in-laws, and I thought learning Arabic might be the way to do it. So I dove headfirst into learning the language, and let me tell you, it was no easy feat. I spent hours poring over books, listening to podcasts, and practicing with Rashid whenever I could. I was on a mission to prove to his parents that I was serious about him and their culture. By the end of the year, too, I was nearly fluent in Arabic, and I thought, this is it. They'll surely be ready to meet me now. But Rashid, well, he was still hesitant. It felt like he was dragging his feet again, and I couldn't understand why. I mean, I had put in all this effort to learn their language, spending hours learning about Lebanese culture and how to cook Lebanese food, just to embrace their culture and prove my worthiness as a good daughter-in-law. And yet, he was still stalling. I knew I had to put my foot down. It was time for us to face the music, especially after I overheard conversations between Rashid and his parents. They were wondering when he would finally bring his dear wife to Lebanon. It was as if they were growing impatient too, and I couldn't let this go on any longer. Rashid, we've been patient long enough. When are you going to bring her to Lebanon? I want to see this girl. Yes, son, it's been 2 years now. I'm sure her family is impatient as well. Mom, Dad, I promise. I've been thinking about it. It's just that... No more excuses, Rashid. We deserve to meet your girlfriend. Too much time has passed. We've waited long enough, son. It's time to introduce her to the family. Rashid mumbled some more things about booking the tickets, and that was that. Well, not long after, we made our way there. So there we were, in Lebanon, ready to face Rashid's family. It took a lot of pushing and a month of planning to get Rashid on board, but we finally made the trip. I was nervous, but mostly I was hopeful that things would somehow work out. When we arrived at his parents' place late at night and revealed that I, Ella, was not only black, but his wife, things got ugly, like really fast. His parents were furious, yelling at him for bringing a girl like this into their home. Rashid tried to defend me, but his family's anger drowned out his words. I didn't back down either. I spoke in Arabic, trying to show that I respected their culture and that I was committed to Rashid, and that their views on Africans, African Americans, were wrong. But it didn't make much of a difference. If anything, they saw me fighting as defiance. Myra and Malik were beyond angry, calling Rashid a disgrace and making racist comments about me. It hurt, I'm not going to lie, and even though I cried, I stood my ground. I had expected Rashid to stand up for us, to tell his parents that he'd always choose me even if they didn't accept us, even though he reassured me time and time again that he would if he needed to. But he didn't. Instead, he was apologizing to them as if he wanted to make peace. It hurt, because I had hoped he'd fight for our love, or at the very least fight for my dignity as a human being, but he seemed to be siding with his parents, even when they were being so unfair and racist and rude. At that moment, I realized I might have been too hopeful and naive to think our love could conquer everything. It was a tough pill to swallow, and I felt hurt and betrayed, not just by Rashid's parents, but by Rashid himself. After being shown the door at his parents' place in Lebanon, Rashid and I had to book a hotel room, which was our plan B all along. But instead of celebrating our newfound independence away from that toxic part of the family, as was planned, we found ourselves arguing. I couldn't help but ask Rashid why he didn't stand up for me like he said he would. Rashid's response was that he had panicked, and the reality of the situation was nothing compared to the worst-case scenario he had envisioned. He argued that it wasn't fair for me to put all this pressure on him because, after all, those were still his parents. We had some heated exchanges, but eventually, as always, we made up. I think it was partly because a few days had passed and I depended on Rashid to help me navigate my way through Lebanon. We patched things up quickly and decided to return home to America. Back in the US, Rashid told me that he couldn't cut off his parents because he respected them too much. He wanted to try and mend things and get back in their good graces eventually. Our marriage was a bit rocky after the whole Lebanon ordeal, but Rashid tried his best to prove to me that he was serious about us. He was consistent, showing his commitment day after day, and that eventually convinced me that one day his parents would come around. 2 more years slipped by, and I was getting pretty antsy. I'd wanted to start a family, but I couldn't wrap my head around bringing kids into the messed up family drama we had going on. I told Rashid how I felt, but he just kept dragging his feet, making empty promises about talking to his parents. Every time Myra and Malik called, it was either to ask if he'd kick me to the curb or to give him an earful for supposedly disgracing their family. I tried to get him to see that some folks were beyond saving and he needed to cut ties with them, but he clung to hope, thinking he could patch things up with his family. Then came our mother of all arguments when I turned 36. I was fed up and felt like we couldn't wait any longer to start a family. Rashid, we need to talk. We can't keep putting this off. Ella, can't we just... No, Rashid, we can't. I'm turning 36 and I want to start a family. We've been through so much and I can't wait any longer. Ella, you know it's not that simple. My family, my reputation. I get it, Rashid, but we can't keep sacrificing our happiness for their approval. Some people like your parents might never come around. We need to make a choice. You just don't understand, Ella. You're not worth ruining my life for. Let me tell you, that crap right there, that hit me in the gut. He looked like he regretted saying it. But he wasn't remorseful enough to apologize. Rashid, I thought we were a team, that we'd face this together. I'm just so frustrated and I don't know what to do anymore. We need to figure this out, Rashid, for both of us. I can't keep waiting in this limbo. But in the meantime, I can't be here right now. I have to think. I couldn't stand to be in the same house that night. I needed some space to sort out my feelings and heal from the emotional wounds our argument had caused. So I decided to rent a hotel room, putting some distance between Rashid and me for a while. I had hoped Rashid would come back to me, that he'd apologize, that he'd take me back and cut ties with his parents to show his commitment to us. But days turned into weeks, and Rashid didn't make the move I longed for. Staying there for 3 weeks, I felt like I was stuck in a never-ending cycle of depression and anger. It became clear to me that I couldn't keep living like this. The pain of waiting and the constant doubt about Rashid's intentions had become unbearable. One day I made a tough decision that would change everything. I managed to get my hands on divorce papers and I filled them out. I decided to leave them in our house when Rashid wasn't even home to avoid any confrontation. Deep down, I knew he had a way of talking his way back into my life. So I left those divorce papers along with the engagement ring he had given me. It was a heartbreaking choice, but I knew it was time to move forward, away from all the nonsense and drama. After I left those divorce papers and my engagement ring in the house, Rashid returned home from work and he was blowing up my phone. He sent me hundreds of text messages begging me to take him back. It took every ounce of strength in my being not to call him back, not to open the doors of communication again. I decided to handle communication through my lawyer because I couldn't bear to face the man who had caused me so much pain. Rashid continued to plead and apologize, thinking that if he could appease me, I would change my mind. The divorce went somewhat smoothly and quickly because Rashid believed that I would eventually come back to him, so he was quite lenient with a lot of things. But a whole year passed after the divorce and I was still avoiding him. Rashid began to panic, realizing that I was being serious and that he actually needed me in his life. But I no longer wanted him. The wounds were too deep, and the pain he had caused was something I couldn't easily forget or forgive. 4 more years flew by, and now I was 41, living my best life, dating around, and thoroughly enjoying my late 30s. Those years had brought a sense of freedom and happiness that I hadn't felt in a long time. I had built a new life for myself, one that didn't revolve around the turmoil that had once defined my relationship with Rashid. Then, out of the blue, my peaceful world was disrupted. My inbox was flooded with emails from unrecognizable addresses. At first, I didn't pay much attention to them, but they kept coming. I didn't want to think ill of my ex, but honestly, I wouldn't put it past a man to continuously harass a woman he was obsessed with. So eventually, my suspicions of Rashid being behind this sudden dose of harassment were right. Eventually, Rashid managed to get a hold of my new phone number, and that's when fear started creeping in. I couldn't help but wonder how he had managed to find my number, so I asked him about it, and it wasn't pretty. His response sent a shiver down my spine. Ella, how could you ignore me for all these years? What happened to till death us do part? You're selfish, you know that? Rashid, we both know that this was gonna go nowhere if you keep supporting your racist family. I respected myself enough to leave. Why can't you appreciate that I needed to do what was right for me? Right for you? What about what was right for me? You never understood me. You thought that I could just up and leave my family for you? Rashid, how did you even get my new number? I have friends in high places, Ella. Friends who can find out a lot more about you if I want to. At this moment, I knew that the perfect Rashid I knew was long gone. I guess all those years without me took a toll on his mental health. He just couldn't handle that he no longer had a hold on me. What are you trying to say, Rashid? Just remember, Ella, I can easily find out where you live and have some not so nice things done to you if you test my patience. What do you want from me, Rashid? I want you to come to my place. My parents, well, they still think we're married. When Rashid dropped the bombshell that he hadn't told his parents about our divorce, I was utterly shocked. I couldn't believe he had kept something so significant from them for all these years. I was even surprised because I thought they would be glad to know that Rashid and I split up. He said he was too embarrassed to admit that it was me who had initiated the divorce. He claimed it would bring even more shame to his family because it turns out that they believed it was a disgrace for a woman to divorce a man. Typical. Then came his proposal. Rashid said that he would pay me to pretend to still be his wife, as his parents were finally coming around to the idea of me being part of the family after a whole decade, and they wanted to throw a party to celebrate. I was scared, not just because of what Rashid might do if I didn't comply, but also because I knew I had to get as far away from him as possible and ensure it stuck this time. So reluctantly and out of fear, I agreed to be part of his lie. Little did he know that I had a plan brewing, one that would hopefully allow me to break free from this twisted web of deception and manipulation for good. The day of the party finally arrived, and I showed up as I had promised. The night before, Rashid had sent me $4,000 as a down payment for my participation, with the promise of the remaining sum after the party ended, provided he was satisfied with my performance of pretending to still be in love with him. As I walked into the party, I was taken aback by Myra and Malik's unexpected excitement. Their warm greetings and friendly gestures were a stark contrast to the hostility I had grown accustomed to over the years. It left me feeling off-kilter, like something wasn't quite right. Myra and Malik even made a little speech to the partygoers expressing their enthusiasm about having me back in their lives after so many years of what they referred to as misunderstandings. But I couldn't help but be skeptical. After all, nobody just turns around like that out of the blue without a hidden agenda. After the party had gone on for some time, Malik and Myra pulled me aside and showed me their true colors. Look here, little girl. Just because we said all that crap about you on stage doesn't mean we mean it. Wow. Why does none of that surprise me? How dare you talk back at her? You're nothing compared to her, you useless little... I don't care what you think about me. You two are horrible. How dare you? I should slap you right now. Go ahead. I'll have you in handcuffs quicker than you can say, I'm a racist piece of. Because of my shouting, some heads were being turned, and before I knew it, Rashid bolted over trying to de-escalate the drama. What the hell do you think you're doing? Teaching your parents some manners. Myra reached out as if to slap me, but Malik held her hand, telling her, not here, in Arabic. We called you here to tell you that we are tired of being distant from our son, even though he's made this foolish decision to marry someone like you. We don't want to keep him out of our lives forever. But if you think you can earn our good graces so easily, you have another thing coming. To please us, you have to pay off our mortgage. Excuse me? You heard me. If you want any part of our life, then you have to pay off our mortgage. Yeah, pay off our mortgage. Then maybe we'll consider accepting you into this family. Are you kidding me? You want me to pay off your mortgage to be accepted by you? You've got some nerve. Myra and Malik went back and forth, saying that the only way they'd accept me was if I bought their love. And you want to know the funny thing? They weren't even doing this because they were poor. In fact, they were pretty loaded. They were doing this just to humiliate me. I was getting sick and tired of their God complex, and I didn't care about getting the rest of the $4 grand. I knew I had to make my move and get my revenge. You two are so delusional. I divorced Rashid 5 years ago, and I couldn't care less about your approval. Myra and Malik were stunned. Their jaws were on the floor, and then they turned to Rashid with disgust. You've brought so much shame to this family, Rashid. You mean to tell me that she divorced you? We moved to America just to be closer to our idiotic son. Rashid tried to do some damage control, but it was too late. Malik and Myra were furious, their faces twisted with anger and embarrassment. They left the party early, their voices filled with resentments as they vowed to never speak to their son again because of what they perceived as his stupidity. Rashid, overwhelmed by the drama of it all, burst into tears. Embarrassing, I know. His biggest fear had just come to pass. The exact thing he had been trying to fight for all these years backfired, and I couldn't have been happier. He threatened to ruin my life, but I had one more surprise in store. I revealed the restraining order I got against him, letting him know that if he even tried to step within 100 yards of me, I would get him locked up. I left that man sobbing. I walked away feeling everything from relief, vindication, and a sense of empowerment. After all the pain and crap he had put me through, I couldn't help but let out a laugh at the sight of seeing him suffer so much.